The Roman Republic was a loosely representative form of government which developed in response to the extinguishment of the early Roman monarchy. The republican system evolved as the powerful aristocratic families, the patricians, struggled for power with each other as well as with the plebeians, the common citizens, who constituted the vast bulk of the Roman population. The system ultimately merged certain aspects of democracy with more oligarchic forms. The government of the Roman Republic consisted of various political entities held together by a series of checks and balances. These consisted of assemblies, magistracies, and most famously, the Senate. There were two major assemblies: the Centuriate Assembly, which made decisions concerning war and peace, and the Tribal Assembly, who elected civilian magistrates such as the quaestors and tribunes. There were various types of magistrates within the Republic, each of whom wielded specific powers. Among the most important were the consuls, two of which were elected on an annual basis, who directed military affairs and the government administration. Also of great importance was the censor, who maintained the census of Roman citizens and whose function it was to maintain public morality. This moral function is why the term censorship has come down to us today to refer to the process of purging harmful material from the public arena. There were also praetors, who held military commands over Roman armies and performed various civilian duties, such as appointing judges and administering the judicial system, overseeing Roman provinces, and performing various other duties as assigned by the Senate. Aediles were officials who maintained public buildings and oversaw public festivals, while quaestors managed state funds and conducted audits of expenditures. There were also military tribunes and tribunes of the plebeians. Tribunes of the plebeians served to protect the plebeians from the decisions and acts of the patricians and fight for plebeian demands. Thus, these tribunes had the power of the veto, which could invalidate the acts of the other magistrates. To prevent intimidation of or violence against these tribunes were considered sacrosanct, as an attack on their person was amongst the gravest of crimes, and could result in summary execution of the offender. The Senate was the most preeminent governing body in the Roman Republic. Its members were drawn from the patrician class. The Senate oversaw foreign policy, ran the state administration, and administered public finances. In addition, they often directed Roman magistrates through decrees. The Senate also had the power to appoint a dictator. The Senate could appoint a dictator when faced with a particularly grave national emergency, typically a military crisis. Dictators could be appointed to rule until the crisis for which they were appointed had subsided, but for no longer than 6 months. The purpose of the dictatorship was to consolidate the state power into a single person, as it was believed that the Roman people would be better protected in desperate circumstances by one nearly absolute ruler than by the normal state bureaucracy. The decisions of a dictator could not be appealed, and he could not be held accountable for his acts upon his relinquishment of his dictatorial powers. The powers of the dictator were vast, but not absolute, as the Romans were keenly aware, that a dictator might ultimately attempt to use his power to establish his own dominance over the city. Thus, dictators could only act in the realm of the crisis for which they were appointed. This most often led to their appointment as supreme military commanders. The dictator's first act would be to appoint a magister equitum, or master of the horse, who would serve as the dictator's principal lieutenant and second in command. Roman law has had a vast influence on later judicial developments. The Romans pioneered many concepts which have survived to the present day, such as quorum, impeachment, veto, and regularly scheduled elections. The first Roman legal text known is that of the 12 Tables. The 12 Tables came about as a result of the discontent of the plebeians towards the patricians, who dominated all public offices at the time and administered the laws in their own favor. The tables regulated matters ranging from land rights to criminal prosecution, and from debt regulation to personal injury law. As a written code, the tables were inscribed on bronze and posted publicly in the forum so that they would be known to all citizens. One of the greatest achievements of the 12 Tables was in guaranteeing equal treatment of all citizens under the law. These tables did succeed in alleviating the social conflict which was prevalent throughout Rome at the time, and largely served as the basis of future Roman and, by extension, Western law. The Roman Republic was born from a collective revulsion against monarchy, and it enacted provisions to ensure that the citizens of the Republic were protected and that their interests were advanced. The Republic would, however, face a series of external and internal conflicts which strained the social order. Victory in war created vast wealth, which was increasingly concentrated into fewer and fewer hands. The Republican experiment would not ultimately survive these tests, but the governmental and judicial forms it expounded would continue on, having an enormous influence on Western and worldwide civilization to the present day.